What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I just turned 27 years old, so if I'm lucky enough to make it to my 80s, I've lived 1/3 of my life, which I know is a pretty morbid thing to say, but in all seriousness, this past birthday has made me realize that I've lived a good chunk of my life, and I've seen some So if I could go back 10 years and talk to my 17-year-old self, then these are 7 lessons I've learned over 7 years of being in my 20s. The first thing I'd tell my 17-year-old self is that no one is coming to save you. And I'll clarify that by saying nothing is going to save you either. In my late teens and early 20s, I used to crawl through bookstores in the self-help section and spend hours scrolling through YouTube watching self-help videos, just looking for the one piece of information or one tip that I thought was going to fix the perceived flaws that I had. I was an insecure guy, as a lot of young guys are, so I would spend countless hours working on myself by watching YouTube videos or reading online forums. I spent a lot of time on Quora back then. I don't know if anybody else has used that, but basically just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I was kind of like waiting for a guru or a mentor to come into my life and light the way for me, of basically tell me how to live and what to do. What I found by actually living life is that to make a real change, you need to apply action. No one is gonna take that action for you. You have to do it. What I found is that when I actually started to make changes and work on myself, I wasn't as drawn to gurus or searching for information online because I was too busy actually doing the work. Start now. The earlier you start whatever endeavor, the better. The book Outliers does a great job of explaining this, but most of the world's most successful people had a head start. Warren Buffett started investing when he was only 11 years old. Bill Gates started programming when he was 13. Mr. Beast started his YouTube channel when he was 13. Instead of letting that discourage you, use it as motivation to start right now, because it's gonna be uncomfortable at first and you're gonna have to learn a lot. The earlier you start, the better you can get quicker. The next lesson I would tell my younger self is to stop trying to find a purpose. After college, I went through a bit of an existential crisis when I realized that I had been spending 4 years pursuing this degree that I wasn't sure I wanted to continue to pursue as a career. The same thing happened when I was in high school. I was super freaked out about what I was going to study in college, what college I was going to go to, because I thought it was whatever choice I made would be permanent. I would have to do it forever. All this thinking about like my one true purpose really freaked me out. I was super freaked out about it, and I think that this starts at a young age, because I remember in elementary school, when I was in like 1st grade, we did an exercise where we were supposed to draw what we wanted to be when we grew up. What I wanted to be when I was in 1st grade was a guy who jumps out of an airplane with a snowboard, because I saw it in the Power Rangers movie and it seemed like a lucrative industry. But we get this idea of having a one true calling or a purpose very early on. That, for me at least, has caused a lot of anxiety. And so what I've been able to tell myself to sort of calm that anxiety is that we don't have one purpose throughout our life. We have multiple purposes. When we're born, our purpose is to survive. When we're kids, our purpose is to learn about the world and go to school. Then when we're young adults, our purpose is to find a way to contribute to society, doing something that we like or that we're good at. If you start a family, your purpose is to be a good father or husband, or if you're a woman watching this, a wife and mother. But my point is that we're not tools like a hammer that just has one purpose, which is to hit nails. We're multifaceted human beings, and we can have multiple purposes throughout our life. So instead of freaking out about your life purpose and what you're meant to do, instead just ask yourself what you like to do and do that. And once you stop liking it, do something else if you stop liking it. Fitness is simple. I've talked about this before on my channel, but I used to be an overweight child. In total, I lost about 70 pounds in high school, and I've been able to keep it off for over 10 years. But because of my past, in my late teens and early 20s, I was obsessed with my body. I couldn't walk past a mirror without lifting up my shirt to check my abs. I tried countless different diets and workout programs and eating windows, and I bulked and I cut. Throughout all of this, what I learned is that fitness is actually really simple. Unless you have an underlying condition that prevents you from losing weight, to lose weight, all you need to do is burn more calories than you consume. And if you want to gain weight, you need to consume more calories than you burn. If you want to build muscle, you need to eat a high amount of protein. It's recommended to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you need to move your body in a way that uses your muscle. So that can be isometric exercises like yoga, that can be lifting weights, or that could be body weight movements like push-ups and pull-ups. But the point is, you're using your body, breaking down your muscle tissue so that you can, once you eat protein, rebuild those muscles. And that's really all it takes. You can use a free TDEE calculator that you can find online to figure out what your ideal calories would be, and then use an app like MyFitnessPal to track your daily calories, keep track of everything you eat. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation out there when it comes to health and fitness, but really all you need is the basics. Like if you want to burn more calories, then the best form of cardio is just walking. And there's a few things that I want to clarify as well, because back when I was really insecure about my body, I was obsessed with the idea of having a six-pack, the idea of being shredded. And the way I thought of myself was largely based off the way I looked. So that was back in the mid-2010s when Marvel movies were at their peak, and I wanted the typical superhero physique. Something I needed to realize was that those actors don't look like that year-round. They get in their best shape, and then they stand in front of the camera that's put at the best angle with the best lighting to make them look the way they look. And they're literally paid millions of dollars to look that way. The same thing goes for fitness influencers. They get their sponsorships and their followers based off of the way they look. So they take photos when they're in their best shape with a pump, good lighting. It's not necessarily realistic for the majority of people to walk around at less than 10% body fat for the majority of the year, unless you're a genetic freak or on steroids, which is a huge part of it. A lot of people who have these crazy transformations use steroids to have that transformation. Take Sam Sulek for an example. He was already lean, had a good physique, and then on top of that, he started training like crazy. He made it his only focus, his only motivation, and he started taking steroids. So of course he's gonna look better than 99% of people out there. He already started in a good position. I took this video when I would say I was in my peak condition. I was the most shredded I had ever been, and I have to tell you the truth. I took that video after I had been sick for a few days. So I hadn't really eaten that much, which is why I look so lean. I also took this video when the lighting gave off shadows to make me look more muscular. And this was at a time in my life when my main priority was working out. I was working out for multiple hours a day, multiple times a day, and dieting, which is not feasible for most people. It's not feasible for me, which is why when my priorities changed, I lost that physique. But now I'm able to run marathons and do other things, even though I don't look as shredded as I did in that video. So sorry this lesson turned into a bit of a rant, but I needed to get that out there to get to my next point. Looks only get you so far. I'm not gonna tell you that looks don't matter, because they do, but only to a certain point. I, like a lot of young guys, used to spend a lot of my time chasing women. Now I'm happily married to my beautiful wife, but back then I used to think that attraction was based solely off of looks. That's part of the reason I was so obsessed with my body. But once you get the basics down, proper hygiene, dressing well, working out, then dropping an extra 2% of body fat isn't going to improve your chances with the ladies. The only people who really care about that are other dudes. I really feel bad for younger guys because I see all these things out there about looks maxing and mewing and hunter eyes and people trying to sell you gum that changes the structure of your face. The people who are telling you to do these things and trying to sell you these things, they don't care about you. They're not looking out for your best interest, because if they were, they would not give you this advice. I mean, the rabbit hole really goes deep because then you get into cosmetic surgery and all these irreversible procedures. Back in my day, like I'm an old man, I am an old man. Back in my day, looks maxing meant buying clothes that fit you and taking a shower. Nowadays, you have people measuring the ratio of the length of their jawbone to the height of their cheekbones. It's like, if you're fugly, just embrace being fugly. I'm balding, I get pimples sometimes. You know, some days I look better than others. But what I found is that women are much more interested in that you have something that you're passionate about and you're working towards your goals rather than the way you look. Your looks can get your foot in the door, but for a lasting and healthy relationship, you need to be working towards something greater than yourself. Also, young women are finicky. I'm sorry, but that's true. It might not be you, it just might be her. Keep your head up, she's not the one. Stop caring what other people think. I used to struggle to make friends. Like, I had a lot of acquaintances and people that I knew, but I never really fit into a group of friends. I always felt like the odd man out. This really exasperated my social anxiety. and I felt like I just couldn't fit in anywhere. But the way that I finally got over that social anxiety and started building real connections was by, and I know this is gonna sound corny, being myself. For example, I like anime, and I liked anime before it was mainstream to like anime.
Wow.
So I used to hide this about myself. Like whenever I was going out and meeting new people, the first thing I would talk about would never be anime. I'm an introverted person, but back in college, I used to go to parties and go to the bars and have these surface level conversations with people. And I was always like rigid and, you know, not being my true self. I wouldn't really go into my own interests and my own likes because I just did whatever I could to fit in. And this was like really juvenile behavior. I was basically just trying to fit in with the cool kids. I was trying to impress people that I had nothing in common with. And there was actually like a specific moment where a switch flipped in my head. It was at a party in college. I was talking to some people that I worked with, and we were talking about the movies that were in theaters at the time. Now, I'm also like a huge cinephile and I love movies, but back then, the average conversation about a movie was just about the next Avengers film coming out. But there was a movie in theaters that I had really wanted to see, and I thought it was just weird. No one else would have heard of it or wanted to see it. It's called The Favorite. I've actually never seen it. I never went and saw it. It's a 2019 film with Emma Stone. Let me know in the comments if it's any good, if you've seen it. But basically, I brought that up that, oh yeah, it looked interesting to me and I wanted to see it. And the people who I was talking to were actually really into it. And we just started talking about movies that we liked. And for a moment there, we were just nerding out about movies. And that might not sound like a watershed moment, but for whatever reason, after that, I started opening up more and speaking my mind and being more open about my likes and interests. And that brought way more people into my life, way more valuable connections and people who were really my type of people. I became like a magnet to people who shared my interests. And this sounds so basic, but like I spent so much time just trying to fix my personality to be what I thought other people wanted me to be, which is a complete waste of time because all that does is isolate you further from both the people that you're trying to impress and the people who really should be in your life. This is how I got over a lot of my social anxiety because I knew if I was going to meet somebody, then I could just talk about the things that I'm interested in and ask them about their interests. And if there wasn't a click, then we didn't need to continue the relationship. I wasn't trying to impress the cool kids anymore. And if people rejected me, then they were really doing me a favor. So the last thing I want to talk about has to do with addiction. Now, if you find yourself in the throes of a serious addiction, then you should seek psychological help. I'm not a professional, but I have broken one or two minor addictions before, and this is how I've done it. Basically, to kick a bad habit or break an addiction, you need to change the way you think of yourself. There are tricks you can use like getting rid of triggers and changing your environment, but the big change, at least in my experience, comes from changing your psychology. I've never talked about this before on my channel, but I used to smoke cigarettes. I really got hooked in Spain, where it's a lot more socially acceptable, and I had friends who smoked, and so I was smoking like at least a cigarette a day, about maybe a pack a week, which may not sound like much, but it was starting to ramp up. And so I decided that I wanted to quit because right around my 26th birthday, I realized that whatever damage I was doing to myself was going to be much harder to reverse after I entered the latter half of my 20s. So I really sat down and thought about the way that I perceived myself. And I perceived myself as somebody who's health conscious. I had the goal of running a marathon last year, and smoking wasn't in line with the way that I thought of myself or with my goals. So I finished the last pack that I had, and I never bought another one. And I've had cravings since then for sure, but I always bring it back to making it about my identity. And I just don't identify as a smoker. Honestly, while I was smoking, I was really ashamed of it. I would hide from my friends and family to go smoke, and whenever I had to go somewhere, I would change my clothes, and I always smoked outside so I wouldn't stink up the house. So I just figured, if I'm so ashamed of this, why am I doing it? Honestly, shame can be a pretty powerful motivator. So this is just my 2 cents, but if you want to break a bad habit, you need to look inward. Ask yourself if what habit you're trying to break is in line with the person who you are or who you want to be. For example, if you want to start your own business, but you're addicted to playing video games, Ask yourself if your ideal entrepreneur self would really spend so much time playing video games. Or say you want to start a family and you're addicted to. Ask yourself if you think a good father and husband would really be watching all day. But again, those are just my 2 cents. That's my opinion and my experience with breaking an addiction. So I think that's enough navel gazing. 26 was a crazy year for me. I ran a marathon, I moved to Mexico, and I got married. Hopefully 27 will be a good year. I'm excited to see what it brings. If you want to support my videos and get access to exclusive content, then you can go and check out my Patreon in the link in the description. Hopefully you guys got some value from this video, or if not, you could at least relate. If you did relate, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing or sharing it with a friend. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and until then, give travel. Peace.